So the big question is this: how do small businesses like yours, who feel like you're doing all the right things and going to all the right events, reach the federal buyer in a way that helps you win more contracts? That is the question, and this is the place to get your answers. My name is Neil McDonnell. Welcome to the GovCon Chamber of Commerce. Okay, let's get started. In this video, I want to sit there and walk you through another key document that's coming out of the Department of Defense that takes care of answering the question, where do I do my homework? Well, you do it right here in this document. Let me just dive in there really quick. This is from the Director Operational Test and Evaluation out of the Department of Defense. And they put these reports out each year, and each agency has their variations of similar type reports. This one's test and evaluation, so you'll see in a minute the type of information it's going into, but it touches on every one of the services: the Army, the Navy, the Air Force, the Marine Corps, DOD Joint Commands. And as you go forward and try to work with the Department of Defense or any of these major commands or services, such as the Army, you'll be able to look in here and learn a little bit about some of the challenges and future or forward-thinking thoughts that they have on ways to address the challenges that they describe in this document. So this is a little different than a strategic plan, because this really dives into the meat of the analysis of the systems that really the military uses to fight our wars. So I'm going to cruise through here, but one thing I want to point out is this is 310 pages, right? And the reason I'm presenting this to you is because, first, I think it'd be useful to you, and second, I had to go through this anyways. I'm reading all 310 pages to find information that's valuable to the people I serve. And as long as I'm doing it and I can provide you some insight on one, how to evaluate a document like this and break it down, and then two, how to find certain pages that might fit for what you do. If I can do that, that'd be great. This document is not going to touch on the construction services or janitorial services, for example, but it is good for you to just watch how I digest this document or analyze this document, because then when you see other documents and you begin to figure out, well, how can I help the government? I'm always a big fan of that JFK quote, which I'm going to completely brutalize. But when JFK was walking through NASA one day, back in that 10-year period, we're going to get a person on Mars and back within the decade, and he saw somebody who was wearing some coveralls uniform, and it was a janitor, but he asked him, what do you do here? And the person said, I help get a man on Mars and back, right? And so everybody was around that mission, and we contractors, and especially small businesses, need to understand that we don't just do the janitorial work or the IT work. What we're doing is helping our customers in the DOD or anywhere in the federal government accomplish their missions. The more we understand their mission, the more we can provide solutions that fit to that. So let me go ahead and just bounce down here. I've got a lot to share. I think it's really valuable. So whoever sticks with it, you'll get a lot of good information from my perspective. So I'm going to cruise through here. There is some stuff I just want to point out, right? Is when you look here at the yellow highlight here, I say, does the Department of Defense have the right tools, infrastructure, processes, and people to properly evaluate the extraordinary technologies we plan to field next year and more than 10 years from now? And I highlighted that because right before they're talking about why, right? They sit there and say DOD's operational live fire T&E, test and evaluation, have been sufficient to provide accurate information to decision makers in the department and on Capitol Hill, and to the users, in their case, American warfighters. As global threats grow, however, with near-peer adversaries closing the capability gap and the number and severity of potential attack vectors rapidly expanding, the very fundamentals of operational and live fire T&E must be examined. And so what they're talking about is this challenge in their way looking forward. And we need to understand that this is a big part of RFI responses and RFP responses, is don't just tell us, oh, here's our approach, but do you understand who we are and what our mission is? Do you understand our challenges? When you make a recommendation, why are you making that recommendation? What's it tied back to? And if you read documents like this, then you can begin to bring what they're saying and thinking into your response. And it's a much more likelihood that you'll be a match for them. So just coming down, this introduction has a bunch of, the whole 310 pages, right? A lot of good information, but I highlighted a bunch. So here, one of the things they talk about is we're now 20 years into the 21st century, but in many ways, DOD acquisition functions appear to be stuck in the 20th century. Now, for all you small businesses who feel like maybe acquisition life cycle hasn't gone the way you wished it has, well, don't worry. The government feels the exact same thing. They feel like they're not just 20 years behind, but probably stuck in the 20th century means they're 20 to 50 years behind. And those contracting officers or people who are responsible for the acquisition, they too wish they could come into the 21st century, and they understand as a bureaucracy, the government's just moving slow. My point here by highlighting this is, well, first, give them a break. And then second, come in with a way to help make life easier for them. Don't come in there and complain about how archaic it is. They know that. And then this next thing I highlight, to help make development and fielding more dynamic, in 2020, DOT and the development test community took the first steps to integrate developmental test and operational test. And the reason I wrote this down is because they're talking about systems, right? The Black Hawk helicopters, submarines, monitoring systems. But they're basically talking about DevOps almost in a sense here with these major systems. So it's not just down at the bottom level. This other one, just a couple of things you just pay attention to here. They're talking about some of the highlights on the F-35 and joint simulation environment, and I'll talk more about that. Here I highlight this section, our DoD ranges ready for the future. This is a challenge. That one header is just telling me I need to read this paragraph and understand what are some of their challenges. And frankly, even looking in here, let's say I'm on the IT side, the cloud side, software development side, whatever. And I look at that, I go, oh, ranges, that's, live fire, it's bullets. That's not me. Well, no, looking in there and figuring it out. I mean, there's training systems they're talking about. There's the weapon systems or software systems. So reading this and taking the time to read it and become familiar with it is not a waste of time. At most, it'll take you a day, right? That's 8-hour investment for tens of millions of dollars in revenue potentially. I'm not really talking to the people who are just getting into the government here, but people who are able to participate at this level. Coming down some more of the introduction, they start talking about space testing and training, and this is really fascinating for me because they're talking about, first off, funding. I highlighted this, and over the future years defense plan. First off, when I see something that says future years defense plan in capital letters like that, I'm going to go look for that. That's a tip I want to just provide to you. If you see something like that and it applies to you, then go try to find that plan. It may or may not be visible, right? Or sensitive data, but you can go to Google and find out. But they talk about DOD intends on spending $100 billion on space assets. Now, I don't really work in space, but I actually don't think not many people do. So there's room for all of us to figure out where could we fit. And down here, another paragraph, space systems present a significant challenge, and this makes total sense. They form our data command and control, intelligence, surveillance, and reconnaissance highways, and they constitute an unprecedented attack surface. Each component of the space system architecture is vulnerable from cyber threats. And later on in this document, they talk about, but we really don't have a great grasp on testing in space. It's kind of a new thing for us. This next whole section in the introduction is about cybersecurity. And one thing I wrote is, especially for those of you in the cybersecurity world, every program manager and every tester must be able to answer the same basic questions. How good is our software? And how do we know? How do we know our systems are secure? How do we know when we're being hacked or when something anomalous has occurred in our software? How do we test to ensure we minimize the maximum regret, which is a great sentence. And with deference to the taxpayer, how much will the software cost over its lifetime, including updates and continuous testing of those updates? And Nicholas Shalon, the chief software architect or officer or whatever in the Air Force, he talks a lot about this, and he really goes into the whole testing and breaking it down. One thing I like about this last sentence, right, in deference to the taxpayer, a lot of times contractors make the mistake of focusing only on price. Hey, this is going to cost $5 million, right? But there's that's the price. There's a cost though over the lifetime, the maintenance, the operations, any upgrades, all that kind of stuff. And the government needs to take all that into account. So keep it in mind as you're advising them, bidding, whatever. Okay, so another part of the introduction that I really liked, people are the key. With its dependence on software, the department faces a breathtaking human capital requirement. This is so big, and they talk about the department cannot build it internally. This is said here in the introduction and said multiple places that I highlight throughout this document. But the department faces a breathtaking human capital requirement. That's where we all come in, right? We're able to sit there and help them surge as they need to and bring the subject matter expertise. Down below, there's a section where it talks about COVID-19 and the impacts and opportunities. And one thing that I really noted here is the unexpected and sudden halt to normal business revealed a substantial gap in DOD's test and evaluation capabilities, while sectors of the commercial world, like mine, were able to quickly resume their production monitoring and acceptance testing via telepresence technologies, Zoom, whatever. The services, agencies, DOT largely were not prepared to adapt to COVID reality. That's a big deal, especially if you're able to help them adapt to that. If you've got recommendations, the government is looking for solutions to the problems they know they have, as well as the problems maybe they're not even aware that they have or that they could have, right? Risks. So take a look at that whole section. I just thought it was really fascinating to talk about how COVID-19, for all of us, really gave us kind of woke us up to the reality of the reality as we all went through COVID-19, whether it was at your family unit, your workplace, or your customers. There was a reality out there that we had to face with COVID. So that was a pretty interesting thing. Okay, so that was the introduction. I want to come down really quick to the contents. The contents are great because, somebody as crazy as me, you'll go through all of this and you'll read it, right? But right away, I come in here and look at the contents. I can find just the sections I want to make sure I don't miss. So an example is DOD Healthcare Management System Modernization. The people I work with, it's healthcare modernization, IT modernization. Those are all big deals. And so I want to make sure page 15, I'm getting to that. But here I can see in this document where they're going to talk about some of these major programs in the Army, at the joint level in DOD and the Navy, knocking on a lot of doors in the Navy and trying to figure out, okay, which ones of these really are fitting. And if you're doing anything with capture and you've got a sales pipeline, I bet you a lot of these systems, if you're in the DOD space, you'll see these systems referenced if you're in any of the professional services, especially IT. Down here, I'm looking at global positioning system. That's a big one that I was dealing with. I was like, oh, let me highlight that and get down to that. And then, so ballistic missile defense, a little outside my world. And then cyber assessments. This was a great section, and you'll see when I get down there. So review the table of contents to give you a quick understanding of the document that's in there. So now let me go to page 11, which is page 27 here. So now you start seeing some cool stuff, and I'm going to try to jump pretty fast to pages, right? But this graphic is just awesome for understanding the digital modernization strategy and related enterprise information technology initiative. When you look around and you see all this stuff, if you're in the IT space or anything related to the IT space, including training, HR, any of that stuff, you begin to look at this stuff and see where it fits in. And this is a great graphic to have on your wall to just remind you of what's going on in there. And I would suggest, if you haven't looked at this, even if you're not in the IT side, take 2 minutes to just get familiar with some of the words. Coalition partners to understand that, the commercial cloud, JEDI, everybody talks about that. What is that? Just take a minute to understand that. I'm going to jump down to page 15 here. This next, come on, guess I could have jumped. So here's the one I was talking about, right? DOD Healthcare Management System. I can see how they're laying out their vision of improving access to care through technology. And I've been doing this for more than a decade in the VA, a little bit in DOD, but especially in the VA, and improving healthcare, understanding patient movement, so moving them around. Here, it's a bigger deal because they're talking about capturing a patient on the field. Capturing might not be the best word, but getting a patient from the field all the way through into the VA system, federal healthcare centers, et cetera. And this is such a great document if you're in the healthcare side, in the IT side, or you want to be heading that direction. And as you come down, you can just start reading a lot of what they're talking about, right? Here's Military Health System Genesis is intended to transform the way DOD and the Department of Veterans Affairs provide military and veteran healthcare missions by creating a single healthcare record for each patient used by both agencies. And this has been since I was in the Army back in the 90s kind of thing. But it is a great deal because, as a patient moves forward out of DOD and we move into the VA system, we don't run our records to be lost, and we want that continuity of healthcare to be happening. So anyways, I look through here and I see some of the highlights of this program. I come down here and I understand a little bit more about what the system is. So the program office plans to field Genesis, a modernized electronic healthcare health record system to 205,000 military health service personnel, providing care for 9.6 million DOD beneficiaries worldwide. And here it talks about facilities are 54 hospitals, 377 medical clinics, 270 dental clinics. And looking in here, you get to see who the big players are, right? The major contractors. Each one of those have got some small business plan. And again, I don't mean go knock on the door if you don't really have a lot of experience either in this area or in the government. But if you've got the experience, knocking on the door makes sense. They want to know who you are and they need help. And they have that side bonus of, a small business plan. So they're kind of required to do it. But more importantly, if you can bring the skills, they want that. Okay, so I'm on page 16. Let me jump to page 37, which is page 53 up here, which is a fun little exercise. So here, I'm starting to come down into the DOD programs, joint regional stack. And this one's a huge deal. But, if you're in the IT space and really understanding the security stack and the program that goes into this, fascinating bullet for me because I've done stuff with Cyber Command here is the Cyber Command is helping the services pilot implementations of zero trust architecture. And again, I was talking about, Nicholas Shalon, who is talking a lot about zero trust. This, if you don't know what zero trust is, basically in the old days, you came into our house, we trusted you if we let you in the door. Now we don't trust you in any room, right? And so you go into the kitchen, you have trust to go in the kitchen, but you don't have trust to go in my refrigerator. That's a separate thing. And then, basically that's what zero trust is. And in here, this new model promises more effective cybersecurity than the perimeter defenses currently offered by JRSS. And the reason this is important is if you're in the cybersecurity world, the software world, or the IT world at all, understanding this, understanding the direction they're going, understanding like here, the mission, right? They intend to use JRSS to enable cyber defenders to continuously monitor and analyze the DOD-IN for increased situational awareness to minimize the effect of cyber attacks while ensuring confidentiality, integrity, availability, and non-repudiation of the data. So, this is all your bread and butter if you're in the cyber world. So getting in there and beginning to understand who the folks are. And then these are all the vendors that have hardware products. I think it's mostly hardware, maybe some software. OEMs, yeah. Okay, so let me skip past that. And you're seeing this pattern as I go down, right? So now I'm going to page 77, I think. Yep, there we go. So now I'm moving into the Army programs. And in the Army, if you don't know this, right? And even I didn't know this in my first company where I worked more business solutions. And so I would do IT solutions for the people who were running the HR department or software development for them or for the logistics department, et cetera, in hospitals, some of the things. But there's a whole software development capability or requirement in weapon systems and in major systems across the whole federal government. And so as you mature your organization, you have more capabilities and skills, you can step into that level. We all kind of step in maturity going up. But here, this one is awesome where it talks about the Army Integrated Air and Missile Defense is a command and control system that integrates sensors, weapons, and a common mission command interface across an integrated fire control network. And so, you think Internet of Things. I know a 8A firm who was talking about how do I get in? And one of the things I suggested to them is just lock in on Internet of Things and then go find another firm, generally small to start, maybe even large, and come in and say, we bring this expertise. And so when they talk about sensors, for example, this guy did a ton around sensors, and he might be able to bring that into somebody who has a company that has a broader skill set, but maybe not that, and piggyback into some of the contracts they have supporting systems like this. Okay, 77. Now I'm going to 83. So I can here major contractors you can see, and you can pause that. And then here, each one of these have different areas, recommendations, which I really thought was great. But the Army should conduct an adequate verification, validation, and accreditation of all modeling and simulation plan for use in that IoT&E. And the reason I put that down is how can you help? If that's your world, IVMV or whatever it is, can you get in there and help? Look at the recommendations that are in this document, and each one of the recommendations I would submit, you should be checking them off. Go, nah, I can't really help with that. Yes, I can help with this one. Let's pop down to page 83, which is right here. Here's another one. Just the assured positioning, navigation, and timing. And so here you can see the layout, but down below I wrote that they're developing technology and fielding a PNT products that are intended to provide Army ground maneuver forces with access to trusted PNT information under conditions where GPS signals may be degraded or denied. And I mean, this just reminds me when I was in the Rangers in the Army that we had that same problem out there. You had some of this early equipment. Now, we were cutting edge before the iPhone, folks, way before the iPhone. So we were cutting edge on some of the stuff, big and bulky. And sometimes it was not reliable. And it's great looking at these guys trying to figure out how do we address it when those signals are not strong. Again, here's a lot of the major contractors. You can see those in there. Let's pop to 105. So again, many, many pages in here. I want you to take the time to scroll through. I'm just pulling out what I see. So this one here I loved because the integrated tactical network, again, when I was in the Army, I worked at each one of these levels in my time going up. And each one of them had a different way of seeing whatever was going on, right? And so you can see the tactical awareness increasing the farther up somebody goes. But down here, they talk about the ITN, a component of the CS21, is a suite of communication and networking hardware and software that provides voice and data communication capabilities to tactical units. And then later on, they talk about what each one of these units has in there as part of their capabilities, et cetera. So if that's your space and you can help beginning to understand that, I can't remember where they said that. Here's the major contractors, so this is your space, you can get in there. Here they're talking about their tests. Where did I see this thing? I must have saw it above. So anyways, here's some recommendations that I really like this. Continue the DevOps cycle, DevSecOps cycle to evaluate and improve the I-10. This process should continue to have regular governmental testing that includes both soldier feedback and test instrumentation. Don't just do it in the blind. Make sure the soldiers are telling you, is this really helping us downstream? And then develop a robust operator and maintainer training program to support ITN fielding. So the reason I highlighted that is even if you're in the learning services, the training services side of the business, you could contribute in here and you could team up with another company who might have a much larger contract for this. And so potentially taking a look at this program, sorry, let me roll back up here, taking a look at the integrated tactical network and then reaching out maybe to some of these contractors and say, hey, we do really good training. That's our world. And you can address some of you can talk to them about, hey, I read the recommendation. Could we talk about that? Is that an area we can help? So people always want to hear it if you know what you're doing. Let me come down here to 109. Some more interesting stuff. I don't think I highlighted a lot, but just pointing it out, the integrated visual augmentation system. So this is huge as you're walking forward. And then let me hit 117. 117. Did I get that right? 137. Is this page 137? No, I got my pages off a little bit. Oh, I know what I did. This is supposed to be 133 or 137. Aegis, so modernization program. So here, this is huge to me. Anytime I see a modernization program, obviously there's weapon systems on here, et cetera. But taking a look and trying to understand what are they doing? What's the direction they're going? You're not going to come in as a small business and take this, right? Get a contract in there. But you can certainly team up with some of these folks or begin to figure out how could you contribute? Are there certain stuff you can do? And I don't know a lot about this, right? But if you're in the weapons systems, if you're in the welding side of the house, whatever it is, could you fit in? Here they're talking about what they're upgrading, right? And that's important to figure out. And then I don't know if I highlighted something else. Nope, I just wanted to point that out there. So then 153, another one. So here's cooperative engagement capability. Just understanding the missions that they have out here. Let me pull up another one. 191. So this one was fun. This is the Presidential Helicopter Fleet Replacement Program. And in here, one of the reasons I highlighted this, right, is the Navy testing. And I saw Cyber Test Plan Annex. And whatever that is, I want to go find it. Remember what I said earlier, right? If you see something in capitals like that and it's a document reference, see if you can get access to that. Even ask the government. Sometimes you have to go in to sit down to read it, but if you can get access. And for HMX1, That's who's running it. This used to be another customer of mine. DOD, I had a lot of business with DOD and separately with the White House. But in this particular case, you see, you got HMX and then you got WAMO, White House Military Office. But in here, they use these aircraft to provide safe and timely transport of the President of the United States, basically from one place to the other, generally the White House, bowling or whatever is out in Maryland. Anyways, there's a ton of business out here for small businesses, right? Sometimes you think, like right here, it's this Lockheed who's doing the helicopters. Yes, they're doing the helicopters, but who's doing the interface of the connectivity up and downstream, right? That helicopter has to communicate with the limousines that are on the ground, with the White House itself. You know, who's doing that? There's so much room in there to begin to figure out how you might fit in. If you've, and I haven't said it yet, so I'll say it now. If you've got a core competency that is focused, then anybody will listen to you and want to work with you because you theoretically are one of the best companies at that since you're focused on that. And just because and the reason I'm pointing this out is because you might look at this and go, oh, it's helicopter fleet replacement. What do I know about helicopters? Well, who cares? I mean, do you know anything about the wheels or something? Are you good at wheels? Are you good at technology? Are you good at leather in the inside? I don't know what it is, right? If you've got a specialty, you can get in there. But these guys, and knock on the door of WAMO and you'll find some good small business activity. Okay, so that was 191. Let me go to 201 now. I'm cruising along. We're almost at 300. So just here's a couple of more. Now we're into the Air Force Air Operations Center, weapon systems. Let me see if I highlight anything or I'm just highlighting it as a program. Some good programs out here that I like. Coming down, here's another one there. This one's huge, right? If you're in the finance side, Defense Enterprise Accounting and Management Systems, DEAMS is huge. And when you start looking in here and you see what they're putting together, now if you're in the finance world, it totally makes sense. But if you're on the software side, program management side, you can get in there and start helping. Here it talks about DEAMS interfaces with approximately 40 other systems that provide travel, payroll, dispersing, transportation, logistics, acquisition, and accounting support. They support financial management requirements. This is a huge system. If you're in the finance world at any level and or software, right, you're fitting in. Here I like how the Air Force financial managers in the organizations, it talks about what do they use DEAMS for? You know, they use it across the Air Force, across TRANSCOM and other U.S. component commands to compile and share accurate, up-to-the-minute financial management data and information, right? So I work with some folks who are in TRANSCOM, and this is a big deal. Do they team up with somebody? They satisfy, and I like the last bullet, right? Satisfy congressional and DOD requirements for auditing of funds, standardization of financial ledgers, timely reports, and reduction of costly rework. Think about that from your side. I know firms, small businesses that are auditing firms, CPA type firms, you know, could you get in here and contribute? Here, it's interesting to see CACI is the major contractor. I don't know a lot about this, so I'd be curious about the timeline on it. But this is definitely one that's probably on the radar of some of the folks I support. So let me come down here. One of the other things that I noticed for recommendations is that the Air Force should address cybersecurity vulnerabilities that present a high risk to DEAMS mission. That's huge. It's absolutely huge. If you're in the cybersecurity world, I'd be like, oh my God, I gotta target this program. If the Air Force is your primary customer, right? Don't get sidebarred if the Navy is your primary, or if you're off in DHS or something. Don't come over here because you see me saying this. But if you're in the Air Force, you should be in this space. You should not just look for random cybersecurity things, but you should look at DEAMS, which just has a cybersecurity vulnerability issue. The other one is continue to improve DEAMS training with a focus on site-specific workflows, which to me, again, goes back to you folks who are doing training, who have that expertise in learning management systems, et cetera. And then for all Air Force programs in agile development, to avoid fielding systems that do not support critical missions. The Air Force should resource programs adequately so that they can, and then it goes down and talks about it. But I thought that was a pretty important thing for you to pay attention to when you're working with any of these programs. Are they actually mission critical? One last thing I didn't highlight, though, is just look over here. They had 22 SEV1 incidents for those of you who've been around, right? 105 severity 2 deficiencies. These are flags. You know, they may or not be fixed already, but it's a flag for you to understand what's going on. But it looks like there was progress also, right? 0 SEV1s after that. So 22 and 0. So I'm assuming they've done a lot to kind of get going. Okay, so that was page that, and then where am I? I got just a couple more to show you. So here's this one. I just like this whole idea of the global positioning system enterprise. There's a lot in here. If you're on the GPS side, software side, satellite side, there's a place. It's like there's a place for everybody to play in here. Everybody can join the team. And then ground-based strategic deterrent. So GBSD, I work with some customers on this and pushing it forward. But you can look at a lot of this stuff, right? They're doing cybersecurity risk assessments. It sounds like it's something that might be outside of your world, and it might be if you're new to the whole world, right? But you look in here and you can see what's in there. GBS, it's an ICBM nuclear warhead delivery system that provides safe, secure, and responsive global capability both to deter potential adversaries, which I'm sure it does, and to assure allies, and if necessary, decisively defeat adversary targets and retaliatory capabilities. Yeah, let's keep that on the let's not fire those. But the point is, if you look in there, you might think, nuclear, it's a nuclear system. It's just outside my world. Well, I know a lot of small businesses that start off with a $200,000-$300,000 contract because they've got this one little specialty on software development or something, and they work themselves through and become larger and larger because they develop more and more experience. And systems like these are big enough. A single system like this is big enough to fund a small company to grow up into a $5 and $10 million firm, where you then go, okay, where else can we play, right? So when you look at Northrop, Bechtel, and Textron, and you look at these contracts related to this, they're huge. And so I'm just pointing out that if the Air Force is your primary customer, you can look in there and figure out slowly but surely. It might take a year, but if you can get in, no one wants to get rid of you if you do good work. And so then your growth is pretty much on a sustained path after that. Okay, so that was 95. And then let me go to 227. 227. For those of you following, I got two more. This one, space fence, which I think everybody should participate in protecting our fence. So space fence, it's a space surveillance S-band radar system integrated into the space surveillance network. And SF detects, tracks, identifies, and characterizes man-made Earth orbiting objects in space, right? This whole world is just going to continue to expand. People talk about cybersecurity and cloud or anything else, these big growth areas. Well, I guarantee you space is too. I have no idea about space. I know I like it. I know I'd like to go to Mars, but it's not my world. But it is an expanding area for those of you small businesses who are, in this, not in construction, let's say, or lawn care, but if you're in the IT world and the satellites, hardware, any of that kind of stuff, then the growth is just guaranteed here. And so getting into some of these systems early and learning the ropes and starting to grow. And when I say learning the ropes, I'm not just talking about companies that are starting. I'm talking about if you're 20 or 30 million, you still have to learn the ropes in a new system. It's like, great, you're doing 40 million over in that system, but this system's different, And so everywhere we always start off kind of at scratch and then we work our way up. Okay, and the last one I had a note on, 259, is just this huge section on their cyber assessment across the DOD, right? Some things I highlighted though. DOD continues to evolve cyber defensive capabilities, right? Remember that. However, development of effective capabilities remains slow, and observations for this fiscal year confirm the conclusion from previous years. Critical DOD missions remain at high risk of disruption from adversary cyber action. Not like this is new to anybody who's got a TV, right? But you're hearing the DOD talk about this. This is critical. On the TV, it's news and it's fascinating. But here, if you can help them move forward, then this is a big deal, right? They're constantly looking for people to help and watch some more of this stuff I highlighted. The resources and expertise needed for realistic test and evaluation and assessments during exercises continue to increase due to the ever-increasing number and variety of cyber threats, coupled with a growing number of events, including events that involve coalition partners and agencies outside of DOD. Efforts to acquire an adequate supply of cyber capabilities are greatly hindered by the chronic deficit of cyber expertise available to the DOD. Greatly hindered by the chronic deficit of cyber expertise available to DOD. If you're in the cyberspace and haven't lined yourself up 100% behind the DOD, then you might be spreading yourself too thin, right? If you're under 10 million, I would be saying go all in. Of course, the other services could use it, but I'm guaranteeing you, DOD is the cutting edge of it. DOD, DHS. So emerging technologies that are enabled by artificial intelligence and machine learning will soon call for an entirely new assessment tools and method, and will intensify the expertise gap. To close this gap, the DoD urgently requires a well-funded and widely accessible pipeline of cyber expertise. Now, in here, they're partly talking about federally funded research and development centers, but they could also be talking about your company, right? Those of you who are doing cybersecurity, this is a place to be. As you come down and look at their cyber assessment activities, I just quickly highlighted them, but the operational test and evaluation with cybersecurity assessment program is a big thing for you to pay attention to if you're not fully aware of it and you're in the cyberspace. Persistent cyber operations. Down here, advanced cyber operations that they perform, engagement with the intelligence community, a whole bunch more that they lay out. And then some of the other stuff I wanted to put down are examples of FY2020 observations and accomplishments, what they got done. I don't know if I highlighted these so much as just you taking a look at it, right? Security stack assessments, zero trust architecture, which I mentioned before. And then down here a little farther, they talk about the way ahead, right? For the FY21 or for FY21, they're going to continue to increase the realism of their assessments to accurately test the warfighter's capability to sustain critical missions that are contested and degraded by advanced cyber adversaries. Ready access to talented cyber workforce and advanced tools are all essential. So they're going to be trying to test the warfighter in the field, and our enemies are going to constantly try to knock out the services available to them. And so what they're saying here in that second sentence is ready access to a talented cyber workforce, and advanced tools are essential. They need more of us in there helping them with this stuff one way or another. So you can see a lot of stuff that they're doing in here. They're the way ahead. They're going to assess mission assurance with network degradation. They do this all the time, but they're going to continue to do this. Improve assessments and tests of offensive cyberspace operations, capabilities, and processes. Special assessments for cross-cutting technology. You can read this, but I was just really fascinated when I read it. And then implement remote assessment technologies. So the rest of the stuff I'm not going to go into, but there's a lot more fascinating stuff as you get down here and you start looking into the appendix. I know this might be a long video actually, but I blew through it really fast. I spent several hours, obviously, reviewing this whole thing, trying to find the stuff that would be vital to the people who look for my analysis of this document. But this is just one document that's out there. Take the time to go find these annual reports for your primary agency. If you're supporting DHS, if you're supporting HHS, and they have these annual reports that talk about the state of their department, state of their agency, then you want to find them so you understand the challenges, their way ahead that they're stating, and then figure out how do you fit into that match. That stuff is all really important for your success and also for the government's success. So if you found this content valuable, which I'm sure you did, please give it a thumbs up. Others will too. If you'd like to connect with me personally, definitely do so on LinkedIn. Happy to answer any question that you have. We often do free training webinars and interview federal buyers, which we're going to pick up a lot more on this fiscal year. Sign up for the GovCon Chamber's email list to be notified about these opportunities right here at www.govconchamber.com. And finally, please consider becoming a sustaining member of the GovCon Chamber of Commerce. Help us keep bringing you great content like this for $1 a day. I'm Neil McDonnell, wishing you great success.